here with Dusty Evely, and yeah, we're just gonna be talking some linebacker play, some run fits, some coverage, blitzing, all that good stuff. I'm not sure who's gonna pop in here. I know there's a game going on, so we'll see who shows up. But yeah, anyone who wants to can. Um, yeah, I mean, Dusty, let's see kind of your general thoughts about the game overall. We can just dive.
Yeah, not great. Game overall wasn't great. I mean, we'll dive into it, I guess. I mean, I thought Quay looked pretty good. I thought I don't. I mean, we'll get into that, I guess. But I thought early on, it seemed like they basically like don't move until something declares itself, which I thought was good. Kind of
Yeah.
use athleticism in a way they hadn't really done before. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of dive into this side that I haven't looked at a ton honestly this week. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so yeah, I will go ahead and share my screen, share the video clips we've got here, and let me enter full screen here. All right, so what I was thinking, I've kind of divided up the clips into a couple different sections. Um, so this first one here, let me actually here. Um, this first one is basically just blitzes and sim
Okay,
pressures. So I thought we could cover those, just kind of get a look at them. And yeah, just kind of look at some of the fun stuff they were doing.
sure.
Uh, yeah. All right. So this first one, and this one was actually, I was really happy to see this because with the Packers, they don't run a lot of basically two high sim pressures. A lot of their sim pressures are single high. So you'd have a safety right deep, you have the corners deep thirds, and then you essentially what would normally happen is the underneath players, right, they would be playing essentially blitz coverage, but if an edge was dropping out here, that he would essentially be here. Let me change the size of my pen. He would essentially just be adding on to the coverage. It would basically be blitz coverage with what's called a bonus zone. So it's not true like normal coverage. So I was kind of glad to see this type of sim pressure. They're kind of adding that to their game plan. This is called manning, and I'll kind of break that down as we get the end zone view. But essentially, what's going to happen? It's a type of cover two. So Darnell Savage is going to go to the middle read zone. Rasul's, he's going to back up into the one of the half field zones. I think this is actually, so I think this is Stokes actually. So he's going to move into one of those zones. And then what's happening is out here, Quay's kind of playing the hook curl position. Preston's playing hook curl. Jair and Amos are playing the flats, and so it's a really cool way to just kind of get into cover two in a out of kind of a disguise.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this stuff and it's it seems very simple. It's nice thing to do something different, right? I
Yeah,
mean, like the fact that it's not just straight up like we're showing what we're gonna do, because that seemed like a lot of, and I might be wrong here. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Sam. That early on, it seemed like a lot of Barry doesn't really do a lot of disguises, at least early in the season. It didn't seem like he was disguising a ton. It was kind of go out there and execute, and
yeah,
they weren't executing. So the fact that they're kind of getting to some of these core principles in different ways. I mean, you just look at. I mean, this read here, this look here. There's so many bodies at the line, and they're dropping guys in different ways. I mean, it's something that we hadn't
yeah.
seen in the first. I mean, at least 4 weeks. I feel like it was fairly vanilla in the first 4 weeks. I feel like they've really kind of sort of filling this out over the past few, and it's been fun to see. Even if the results certainly late in the game haven't been good,
Yeah.
it's been nice to see kind of a switch up here.
Yeah, definitely, and it's kind of cool. They're essentially giving a man look because you got Amos on this tight end body right here. Jair's in the slot. Savage, he looks like he's covering this guy, which he does a lot. They usually rotate him down when they're gonna
Yeah,
send a guy. And then Rasul's on the outside. Uh, Let me get to the end zone view. So essentially, what Manning is, the sim pressure, and Manning is kind of the name I've seen for it. I know that I think Dave Aranda calls it gut too. So essentially, the mic in this case, which is Rashawn Gary, he's gonna slant across the face of the center. The wheel is gonna kind of cross face, so it's like a cross dog pressure. And then these three techniques are kind of fan out hold contain on the edges and prevent the quarterback from escaping that way. But it really overloads that center. And what I really like is this running back, he has to come all the way over here. And so it's going to be hard for some running backs to, do that just because you have to go all the way across from where you were lined up to make that protection.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for anytime Rashawn Gary lines up like over an A gap. That's just kind of what gets me excited at this point is just seeing. And I mean, Amos was B gap or something, right? I mean, they're mixing up a lot of stuff up front as well.
Yeah, I think so. Or not on this pressure. They did send him on at least another one that I think we're gonna cover. But yeah, I think right here he's the flat player, away from the trip
For some reason, I
side.
was thinking he was inside a little bit. I might be wrong there.
Yeah, it kind of they kind of do a little thing up here
Yeah,
where they
you're right. Yeah, he's out there. Yeah,
yeah. Okay, I think we could
that's
just
right.
go on to the
Quay's
next
the
play
edge
there.
and Quay drops. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. This is another rep of essentially the same thing, right? Rashawn Gary is going to cross face. Devondre is going to do a little cross dog action here. They're going to get into cover 2 in the back end, and this is I think on 3rd down. It was Quay's missed tackle, so he like is scooting out of there. And I thought the angle could probably be a little bit better, but I think he just has to finish this a little bit. And it's also just great contact balance, I think, from that running back or whoever catches the
I was
ball.
gonna say it's a tough angle for him. I've not looked at the angle specifically. Like that is, I don't know. Anytime you end up at the guy's feet and you're hoping you tie his feet up, like that's a little rough. But that is
Yeah.
to run through that is pretty good. It just it seems like he gets it's I don't know 2020 whatever his assignment all that like it seems like he could kind of widen that a little bit more like kind
Yeah.
of attack outside. It seems like he maybe goes inside shoulder a little bit more on that tackle attempt and ends up kind of shoestringing him. Like it seems like he's attacking the ball more than he's attacking the player when that ball's out of the hand, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he could probably be a little bit more in front of that. But I didn't watching it, kind of back. It's not horrible, but I think
No, no,
it could
no.
be better.
I was gonna say that's nitpicky. That's me in my chair saying like that's nitpicky. Like the fact that he's able to kind of get back, play his role, and then get back and even try to get on that tackle like that. And I think some of that, honestly, this game, and I'm sure we'll look at it a little bit more, kind of speaks to some of his. It seemed like they were leaning more on some of his athleticism. Do this and then do that, kind of read and react, but wait a beat before you react because we
Yeah.
know you can make up for it. And sometimes that'll bite you. I think maybe that bit him a
Mhm.
little bit here. But the fact, like, how much if you watch his path here, the amount of ground he covers when he gets back and then gets like
Yeah.
he's doing a lot on this play. Like he's
Yeah,
doing quite a bit.
definitely.
So the fact that he gets in on that at all is, I think, is fairly impressive.
Yeah, that athleticism is fun to watch out there. They do a really good
He's
job
because
passing off the
carrying the
routes.
slot vertically, right? I mean, that's his initial thing. He's kind of apex. He's carrying that slot vertically, and then
Yeah,
he passes off and gets back on it, right? I guess he's not apex. He's not
yeah,
apex. No, I'm sorry. He's
yeah.
just
In
off
this
the edge.
situation, they aren't asking him to carry it too much. Some types
Yeah,
of cover two that they play, they ask the slot to carry it a bit more, where he'll
yeah,
actually be like turning and like trailing the
yeah.
guy.
He's more spot drop, I guess, right there, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I would consider that a little more spot dropping, but
Yeah.
definitely a very athletic play there. And we can look at the end zone angle real quick. And this is Enigbari. I'm sorry, this is not Gary. So he's actually the one across the face there. So it's kind of interesting that they basically using Enigbari as Gary's like direct in his direct spot, in his direct role.
Which makes sense there. I mean, it seems like he's done well, but I mean, even the draft, it seemed like his role is almost
Yeah.
wrecker inside feels like what he could do kind of immediately more than anything else,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah, when I was watching his college film, there were a couple clips where he would he would line up over the tackle and just kind of, club and swim type moves where he would just
Yeah,
be
yeah.
wrecking stuff inside. That's actually a really nice pass rush from Devondre Campbell against the running back. It's kind of a little swim move
Made
there.
himself small. Yeah, made himself small
Yeah,
through the hole there.
yeah. All right, so this was one of the blitzes. I think I put a clip on Twitter either yesterday or today. The days kind of blur together. But what this is called this is a blitz from what I've seen. It's called rat backer. So essentially, you're creating a bear front out of nickel 2-4-5. So Sean Gary's going to rush in here. Kenny's going to kind of rush up in here. Dean and Ladarius Hamilton are going to kind of just play their gaps, and then Quay is going to come out to the outside and kind of loop around, and it kind of allows him to play the boot on play action and that kind of thing, and then also kind of run sort of a gap exchange in the run game, which he actually gets a nice tackle on later in the game or later in the clip.
This had nothing to do with something to do just with this. It just kills me that they did not get their hands on more and do some more stuff with some of these Heineke throws in the first half. He could have thrown 4 picks in that first half from the way he looked in some of this. He's
Yeah,
5 yards
definitely.
behind the guy in this throw here.
Yeah, it was definitely rough early on, and I don't know. I feel like they must just not practice catching the ball a whole lot, because I don't know what else to say. I mean, I guess maybe they have better things to be spending their time on, like dropping deep in zones or whatever. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I hear that's important every now and then, catching the ball with your hands.
Yeah, just a little bit. This one is kind of a very similar idea. I think it's technically, so the last one was Ratbacker. And to explain that a little bit, where the Fangio system, from my understanding, the way they name their blitzes is usually it's the stunt, then going back, their calls in general are usually the front, then notes about who's rushing. So like tight will would be like tight front, the will linebacker is rushing, so the weak side outside linebacker, and then they have the coverage. So like tight will 6, so tight front, will linebackers rushing, the coverage is cover 6. What this is Fangio, he's essentially got this package of 5-man pressures where are sending a linebacker and they can tag it with a bunch of different stunts. So there's like cheat backer, sword backer, BB backer, Betty backer, rat backer. There's a bunch of different ones. So that's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying it's rat backer or whatever. It's just that in that package of five-man rushes where they just can say this is the stunt, one backer's coming, and then the coverage they usually say either single or fire zone. Single is just cover 1 with no like rat player, and then fire zone is obviously standard blitz zone coverage. So, like I said, this is what I think is Betty backer, where the outside linebacker is rat backer. He would be coming more inside here. He would be trying to come more inside. Here, he kind of sticks to the outside, and Quay kind of comes around. So, I think this is more for a tool, like if they want to play, option teams where they have a guy who can kind of come down here and play the quarterback, a guy who can come down here and play the give, or however they set it up.
Sure.
But in this case, it kind of works as a play action deterrent. Nice little tackle. I think it was only like a 3-yard gain there. So, all right, and this was kind of interesting. I feel like they were setting some stuff up for the Buffalo game, because they were blitzing out of a lot of looks they hadn't really before. So this is just base 3-4. They got the 2 linebackers. They got Darnell Savage. He's kind of manned up on one of the tight ends. And what they're going to do is this is a cover 0 blitz. So all the outside linebackers, defense linemen are coming, and then Devondre is coming as well into this B gap. Now the interesting thing is, from what I've seen, this is a variant of something called Clip Swill 0.
Okay.
I think that the naming might be a little bit off there, but it's the same idea where it's all the linemen are rushing and then a linebacker's adding on. Everyone else is playing man coverage. So, Quay has the running back in man. These safeties, I think they're banjoing the tight ends. So for anyone who's watching who doesn't know what that is, banjoing is they're kind of splitting responsibilities based on how the routes are run. So like if this tight end went outside, Savage would take him because he has better natural leverage. That doesn't happen here because this tight end, I can't remember actually. Let me play that a little bit. Yeah, he kind of runs an underneath route. Why did he get? Yeah, he kind of runs an underneath route, and then this inside tight end runs a vertical route, so Adrian Amos takes him. I think where it breaks down here, Jair kind of gets a little behind Terry McLaurin. That's a hard route to cover from off man, that drag route. But he's just able to outrun the man coverage.
I say I mean, he's off so much. He doesn't have to fight through too much, I guess, because you get it's kind of like a deeper drag there. But yeah, you get that basically that initial vertical step. You back up one step, and that's really tough to recover from.
Yeah, and I think what they were trying to do a little bit, they were trying to disguise it. So they're saying,
Yeah,
hey, anyone we're playing, this looks a lot like cover three, but we can run a zero blitz from this. So it's just it's kind of like tendency breakers on offense. I know you've talked about that kind of stuff before, where they're showing stuff that defenses have to account for. This is kind of the defensive version of that, where I think they're just saying, hey, we've got this in the toolbox. You can't just assume that we're only bringing 5 or 4 rushers.
yeah, they do get home, and then Campbell kind of knocks him silly a bit on that. So it does give him something to think about. It's a tight. I mean, and I'm a sucker for any of the twists and stunts that's tight on the hip. And I was at Area Smith was really good at that, kind of that exploding right off the hip there, and give you a chance. Campbell seems like he does a pretty good job on that kind of, I guess not necessarily delayed blitz, but that wrap around where he kind of cuts right off the hip there, where you don't really give the offensive line a chance. I've seen too many sloppy twists, I guess, where you're kind of coming off and you give a chance for the guy to kind of recover a little bit. Those tight
Yeah,
twists on the front there are kind of really tough to pick up for an offensive line. It's just a lot of communication involved.
yeah. Um, yeah, that's definitely true. I think that this is kind of interesting. That I wonder if they gamed this up for the protection specifically against the Commanders, because you can see the running back. He's just like going out the A gap, and so I wonder if
Yeah.
that's kind of a tendency they saw where they're saying, "Hey, Devondre, you might want to rush the B gap a little bit more." So let me see here. And I'm sorry. I'm trying to draw stuff on the screen. I don't know if anyone can see that or not.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I'm following along as you're naming the guys.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it now, but
Hmm.
I'm following along fairly well.
Okay. Yeah, that's weird. Oh well. We'll just have to figure it out. Okay. I think that was only like a 4 or 5 yard gain anyway. So okay, and this one is another kind of example of that where I think they're just saying, hey, we can bring a lot of different stuff from this formation. This is a zero blitz from nickel. And what's really interesting about this is what's called Oscar coverage, where it's a variation of man coverage. So the two outside corners, right, they look like they're just playing man on the, like bodies, the wide receivers. But what the other members of the secondary are doing, the slot corner, he's kind of playing over the tight end, and then the safety, who is Adrian Amos, he's up by the 10 there. He's playing over a wide receiver, so it's kind of giving a zone look, and then they're just going to play man off of that. So it's another way to disguise stuff a little bit. Sean Garrett, it looks like they're just full sliding the protection there. Commanders are. Sean
Yeah.
Gary gets free.
There's so many of these. I has nothing to do with some of this, but I love when a quarterback just releases the ball so confidently and the ball is like nowhere within 10 feet of the receiver. It always makes me laugh.
Yeah, it definitely is funny to watch. Just seeing the guys just sling it around out there.
Which I guess like I don't know, Rashawn Gary's bearing down and you unblock. Like I would scream and roughly do the same thing, I assume. So no judgment on him. It just stars are just like us.
Yeah, exactly. Just winging it a little bit.
That's right.
All right, so this one is another one I kind of broke down on Twitter a little bit. So what they're doing is it's a read pressure, and I'll kind of go to the end zone angle. So Quay and Devondre are lined up over the left guard, and what they're doing, I think, is they're essentially reading the guard. So if he slides towards the center, towards Devondre, Devondre is going to drop into coverage. Quay is going to come, which is what happens. If he slides towards Quay, so like if it's man protection or something like that, then Quay is going to drop in coverage and Devondre is going to come. It's kind of a variation. Mike Zimmer used to do that stuff with the double A gap pressures, and I've always really liked that because it's just a way to get a free rusher on a running back or just straight up through the line. So it's kind of fun to watch. The coverage, I'll go back to that here. So Devondre ends up dropping. I think he's supposed to take that drag route, but I was talking. Someone asked about that on Twitter. That's kind of hard for him, I think, just because he's reading the guard, then dropping out, and he's still dropping to his
I was
landmark.
gonna say you're backing out to a landmark and reading the quarterback, while the other guy's like dragging at full speed. That's a
Yeah,
tough ask for that position.
yeah, exactly. So I think that if it was a perfect world, Campbell would see that coming and kind of take it. This is a good call against blitz coverage. They're essentially running like a flood concept to the top there. So the number 2 receiver is going to run like a deep out or a sail, and so they just don't have enough guys over there to cover it because there's an extra guy coming on the blitz.
Yeah. Yeah, and he gets it out quickly. I mean, and that's the thing with some of this. I mean, you look at that. I guess it works as designed. You just hope he doesn't get out that quickly, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like
and
he
break
gets
that
hit, he's
tackle.
on the ground. It's just they hit him. It's just it's he's able to find that underneath quick enough because I think they do hit home. They get that free rusher. Yeah,
Yeah.
Quay beats the man through the B, basically beats the guard, gets around, and then it's not quite quick enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's a nice move by Quay, right? I mean, like he makes him so small, gets around,
Yeah,
kind of beats that. I mean, that's the thing with him. Like he's small and athletic, and he's shown an ability, I guess, to get off guards there a little bit. But I don't know about consistently. So it's always nice to see some of that from him as they bring him more on some of the blitz stuff. You like to
yeah.
see the different ways he can kind of make himself small, kind of beat guys off of different blocking schemes there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that from what I've seen from him, I really like kind of how he blitzes, just
Yeah.
how he approaches it. Just seems to know how to use his hands and kind of get around blockers pretty naturally. And so it's something I wish they would do more, and they're kind of doing a little bit more. But yeah, I think in general he's pretty good at that. That I just would love to see them give him some more chances.
Yeah, it seems like they're amping that up, right? I've not looked at the numbers, but it feels like since week 4, they've been steadily kind of amping that up a little bit. I mean, I don't think he's rushing the passer any more than what, like 6, 7 snaps a game would be my gut feel. Maybe I don't know, but
Yeah,
it does feel like they're starting to ramp that up a little bit, which is
yeah.
good because his skill set seems like would support that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I don't know if the exact count. But yeah, it's not a lot. Like maybe 4 or 5, 6 snaps a game.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if they're like I said, maybe they're setting something up for the Buffalo game or the Eagles game where they're gonna try to. There was a snap during this game where they actually played a snap of dollar personnel, which is essentially 3 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 6 defensive backs. So I was like, okay, that's the first time they've played this season, and they're doing it right before they're seeing a really mobile quarterback. I wonder if there's a connection there.
yeah. Hopefully, it slows him down, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see about that, but that's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. This is essentially the same blitz. The Devondre coming through the weak B gap. All right, I'm not sure if it's weak here. He's coming through a B gap anyway. And then just kind of stuff just gets messed up. So Stokes, he's supposed to take the guy coming in motion. He just gets really
Stuff kind
high.
of gets messed up. That sounds about right.
Yeah. And then Darnell, he the tight end is kind of going into he's staying into protect to chip, and I think Savage kind of assumes that because he's like right there, in the kind of in the seam there, just running free, and this guy gets the ball, and there's not really anyone nearby because Stokes gets so high as he's trying to track him across the
Yeah.
formation. I think okay, here we go. So those were the main blitzes. This one, so I just wanted to get into some coverage stuff. So this is kind of cool way to approach empty. They played empty in some interesting ways in this game. One of my scouting notes kind of leading up to the game was just, when the Commanders wanted to pass, they really spread it out. So a lot of 3-by-1, a lot of like really, spread 2-by-2 stuff, and then they would get into empty a lot as well. And the Packers played it in some interesting ways. So right here, what they're doing, it's 3-by-2. I think what they're doing here is what Fangio calls stuff. It's essentially quarters to the passing string, the 3 receiver side, and then cover 2 to the 2 receiver side. You can kind of see on that 2 receiver side, he's kind of squatting on underneath routes, passing off that vertical route to Amos. And then on the 3 receiver side, Stokes has that number 1 vertical. Rasul, if I remember the rules right, for playing trips in out of quarters or whatever you want to call it, he has that wide receiver vertical and out, and then he's going to let him go under 5 yards. So he's kind of just watching him, kind of sitting flat footed, and this is one of those picks or near picks that you were talking about, where he just breaks down that ball. That is so close.
Yeah, that one. There's a handful of them that really got me in this game. That was one of them.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that was stuff like he was doing, in the Rams game. He kind of remember just he was all over the balls that Matt Stafford was throwing, and
Yeah.
just so close
Well, and
to
that's not
epic
the
there.
thing. He breaks on that one so well, and it's not a good ball. That's like there's that one. I think there's a couple of the Jair that was like, man, this
Yeah,
could have gone. But this one, the his recognition, the way he breaks on this, honestly, and not to curse anything going forward yet, the way he watches film and the way he's able to kind of jump on this stuff, at some point it feels like he gets burned pretty deep off of this, and I feel like he's not been killed yet, but he'll jump this stuff just because he sees it. And at some point someone's going to pick up on a tendency, and I think kind of double move him off of that, or showing something he's not used to seeing. But when he's on his game, and I don't know he's always on it, but when he's on his game and he's recognizing this stuff, he breaks on this stuff before the wide receiver does. Like it's
yeah,
this clip specifically is one that's really impressive. Like he's on this before. I feel like before Heineke's even starting to throw, he kind of recognizes this, which is pretty impressive.
yeah. It's definitely It
Yeah,
just right as he's
yeah,
throwing.
he's on it as he's starting his throwing motion. Like he sees that before Heineke sees it. I feel like.
Yeah, that's man. His route recognition is really fun to watch. That was actually what you're saying about the double moves is kind of interesting, because that was one of the things I noticed about his game right after Packers saw him, is he does play pretty aggressively on those. I would say the first part of the double moves, so he can definitely get burned that way. I think even in the Rams game that we were talking about, I think he was the guy
The
who got
OBJ
burned.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the like 60-yard touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, it doesn't seem to happen a lot. What they like to do with him, or they did last year, is they would play cover 2, so they would have a safety over the top a lot, and then he could just play aggressively. I guess that's actually one of the advantages of him being in the slot, is he's going to have a safety over top
I
of him a
was
little bit
just gonna
more.
ask that. I mean, he's not been great in the slot. I mean, it's been well documented. A lot of people saying that, but it feels like he is a little more protected to kind of free range a bit, where he can go off ball and kind of jump this stuff, knowing that. I mean, just based on some of the drops here, and Savage kind of dropping to the middle, and then the route distribution, all that. If he Stokes on this, and that boundary receiver goes vertical, and he bites on a double move, that's a touchdown. Whereas here, if he jumps this, and that's a double move there, Savage is still capping that over the top.
Yeah,
Like I feel like the margin for error allows him, and I guess that's a trade-off, right? Is that like it allows him to maybe be more aggressive without the defense getting killed, but at the same time, he's not overly well suited for the slot, and so he gives up more mid gains, I guess. And so is the trade-off worth it? But it is something like this. It guards against. It allows him, I guess, to follow his instincts without getting absolutely murdered.
Yeah, that's one of the advantages I think of playing quarters is you kind of have safeties sitting over that slot because in quarters in cover two normally the safeties are reading 1 to 2, so the outside receiver then the inside receiver because they have to guard like verticals out from the outside receiver first. You know, that's the whole honey hole shot or whatever you want to call it that quarterbacks like to take. Um, in quarters, they're reading 2 to 1. So they're reading the slot receiver first. So they kind of have you have two sets of eyes on the slot receiver essentially. So that's kind of one of the advantages of quarters coverage in theory. It doesn't always work out that way. Um, but yeah, I'm interested to see how he keeps adjusting to the slot. I think that the reasoning behind why they put him in the slot makes sense to me in a certain way because he's he's one of their bigger corners, so he can kind of do some of the run defense stuff that
Hmm.
they want to ask from their guys when they're in nickel and they want to just play nickel to everything. um but yeah, if he can like this one was, obviously almost a pick. He also had one on the very first drive. I don't think I have it in here because it was just, cover three. It wasn't super interesting to me, even though it was an impressive play. But he was basically playing the flat route and he just closes on it really quickly. If he can start to do that a little bit more, he hadn't really been doing that up to this point in the season. If he can kind of play like that a little bit more, I think that he can, maybe start to offset some of the disadvantages he has against like the smaller shiftier receivers in the slot.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder. I mean, you hope these kinks are worked out by now. You know, we're through week 7 at this point. You don't like to see experimentation, but it does. I mean, Barry was the same thing last year. Obviously, they went a little bit quicker with some of those changes. I know, like the halftime of week 2 was basically like, "Hey, man, start doing some stuff because we're getting killed out there." But it does seem like, I mean, for his faults, Barry is willing to tweak stuff a little more in season than I think maybe he gets credit for. And so some of this, like, work out the kinks of Rasul Douglas's game in the slot. I feel like we are starting to see some of that stuff now. So I'm curious to see how that goes forward because I mean, the outcry so much is get Rasul out to the boundary, which I tend to agree with, but the tweaks maybe tend to be, well, we're going to keep him in the slot for the same reasons you said. That big body, you can play downhill
Yeah.
a little bit more, you can play the run a little bit more. We're going to keep him in the slot, but the way we play him in the slot is going to be kind of different than the way we've been playing him in the slot, which is
Yeah.
something. Just watching this game, if you watch week 1 and watch this game as far as defensively, you wouldn't think they're coordinated by the same guy. So I kind of appreciate, again, for the flaws in Barry, I feel like his ability to kind of tweak, or his willingness to tweak, I guess, is something that I certainly appreciate seeing.
Yeah, definitely. What was I gonna say? Right. So with the kind of should he be in the boundary or in the slot, I kind of like what they've been doing these past couple games where they've been having Jair follow around the smaller guys, kind of the star receivers, and just putting Rasul wherever he's not. So if Jair's out on the boundary, Rasul's in the slot. If Jair's out, or no, yeah, if Jair's in the slot, then Rasul is out on the boundary. Because I think that the advantage of having Jair out on the boundary is also like a big deal, right? You can essentially shut down a whole side of the field. That's really
Hmm.
valuable as a defensive coordinator because you can do stuff to protect this slot. It's harder to do stuff to protect the sideline, those boundary, star receivers.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah,
think
for
that
sure.
a mix is probably, going to be best. But yeah, I think that the way they're playing it, where it's just Jair outside all the time, Rasul inside all the time, is probably not the best. The way they were playing it early in the season.
Yeah.
And one other thing I wanted to point out before I move on. So the kind of the reason I mentioned how they're playing this in empty is a lot of what your main concern with is in empty, or one of the ways you're concerned with how offenses will attack it is that space in the middle, right? You can see the space between the two linebackers, and the reason they aren't playing just quarters across the board is if they did, then Devondre, who's kind of out on that number 2 receiver, he would essentially have to take that receiver to the flat, and you'd leave a ton of space for in breaking routes. Kind of like they try to run there, a little bit of an over route. Quay does actually a really good job collisioning that. Letting the
Hmm.
receiver run into him a little bit, so he kind of slows down that route, kind of takes it out of the progression a little bit, and gives more time for the safeties to cover that. It's kind of a moot point anyway because Heineke has to throw it. But I kind of like that. I thought he did a good job getting physical on some receivers in zone coverage in this game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I think if you want anyone kind of covering that out route, it's Preston Smith. You want him out in coverage if you can get him. So that's my one tweak to that. Put Preston Smith and Devondre Campbell role there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, might as well just drop Rashawn Gary or whoever else is at edge out there.
Put him on the edge. Put him on the boundary. Let's do it,
Yeah, just
man.
drop
Let's
the whole
go.
defensive line, honestly. Just,
Listen, if
run
you're
it.
trying to disrupt timing of an offense and you're trying to jam a guy at the line, put Rashawn Gary out on the boundary. What are we doing
Exactly.
here? Come on, Joe Barry, outside the box, man.
Yeah, I don't know what he's thinking. Just
I don't know either.
leaving all that talent unrealized.
I just talked about how he's willing to tweak in game, but we haven't seen that yet. Come on, man. What are we doing? Let's do it.
I don't think I've seen Rashawn drop into coverage once this season. It's crazy.
Gross negligence is what it is.
All right. So this one is actually Quay kind of gets a little too caught up in being physical on that receiver, which sounds kind of awkward when I say it like that.
It's fine.
But I think he just gets his hips turned too far inside, so that
Yeah.
they're kind of running that mesh route. He can't get outside as fast as he needs to on this. And it means that's hard to, because the corners, they kind of be, especially Jair, he's being taken out by that vertical route. It's hard to defend mesh with just those two linebackers, especially when
When
it's
they're
like
all up
third
so
and one.
tight, like everything's so tight, so those crossers they
Yeah.
really get caught up in all that.
Yeah, exactly. I liked how Washington ran mesh this game. I thought that they got to it in some interesting ways. All
They
right, so
did.
this. Sorry.
No, they did. Yeah, I'm. Listen, I don't like seeing the Packers lose, but if a team decides to run mesh in interesting ways, that's something I can get behind.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to see them plan it out. Disappointing we haven't had any success with stuff like that as much, but who knows? Maybe we'll turn it around.
Well, no, they've been working on a variation where the receivers run into each other all the time on mesh, which
Yeah,
I
I
feel
mean,
like
it's a good
is going to
route.
pay off pretty soon. You fake running into each other, and then you got a big gain. It's the long game, Sam.
Yeah, they're gonna run that variation that in the divisional round, right? Devontae
Yeah.
and Geronimo or whatever, they kind of run slant. They start to run slants into each other and then break out. And just get those catches going.
The mesh in reverse. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so this one was Quay's near interception. I like this because what he's doing here, he's the weak hook in cover 3. They're playing 3-by-2 empty. He is what's called bingo or bonus dropping, where he's got to kind of widen out to cover that number 2 so that he takes away in breakers. Because if you don't do that, you got a lot of space, where they can kind of cut inside and the quarterback has an easy access throw. One thing I also think, it kind of looks like there's a little window if he kind of stays right there in the middle of the field and doesn't widen out. There looks like there might be a window to throw to that tight end, just kind of really quick, kind of in the seam. So
that's this is Taylor Heineke. Sam,
that is true.
like there is a window. This is Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, I might be giving too much credit to him. But
I
it
mean,
looks like there was a window
there is
there.
something there. I mean, timing is real tight on that, but there's something there, but timing's got to be perfect on that. It looks like.
Yeah, it's tough. But anyway, I like how he does that little bingo drop or whatever you want to call it to take away in breakers, kind of close down that window a little bit, and then just reads the quarterback's eyes, almost comes up with the pick.
Almost. Story of the game, man. Almost came up with it.
Yeah, he's so frustrated with himself after this. It's funny. I mean, not for him, obviously. All right, so this one is another interesting mesh concept. So they've got 3 receiver bunch over there. They got the running back on the same side, so it's kind of a fast 4 alert. And I think what Green Bay's trying to do with Campbell, Savage, Jair, and Rasul on that side is they're trying to run a box check. So essentially, it's a way to play bunches out of a quarter structure. So Jair, he's going to take the outside quarter. Savage is going to take the inside quarter. Rasul is going to take the first of the flat. It's like their same rules, but it's accelerated a little bit to deal with that danger. Kind of the fast 3 or fast 4 or whatever you want to call it, whatever it is in that situation. And then what happens here is basically just coverage on the bottom gets outnumbered, right? Quay, he's he's the quarters flat defender, so he's gonna kind of take that outside drag route. And then the guy sitting in the in the middle of the field is just left open.
Well, and it's interesting because you are flooding the right side because it's that. I mean, like you said, fast forward, you get to the bunch to motion quads essentially to the
Mhm.
right side, and then you start looking like you're going back left, and I guess it's hard to tell necessarily how much of this is planned, but you do get those crossers from right to left that then pivot back right, and so you kind of are flooding right, looking like you're going left, and then you kind of pivot back right anyway. So it's like those guys in the middle, you kind of super flooding back to the right there at that point. I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard to tell how much of that is secondary read versus how much of that because it's kind of fluid. Um, I have a hard time believing. I guess that's super planned because two of those guys are on the same plane, and that
That's
makes
true.
the spacing much tighter. But I do like. I mean, that is kind of basically the sit over the mesh, and he just kind of drifts with it. It's an interesting way to get to it. I do kind of like that.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's a good point. It's weird that they're both sitting in the same
We
zone.
do have, and from this angle, it's really interesting. I mean, that looks like that is planned because that pivot from was that Curtis Samuel, I guess the guy who starts as the three kind of
Yeah.
cross and pivots back. Like you are again, it is kind of like you're super flooding because you go quads and you're crossing two left. The one comes to sit and the other one pivots back. I hadn't really paid attention to this play before. I'm mad at how cool that is.
Yeah, this one really stuck out to me kind of just schematically as well. Just the, getting to the four receiver side, just kind of, and then messing with the flow, right? Defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators, they'll talk about kind of the flow of the play. So split flow is, one side gets two receiving options, the other side gets three. Load flow is where one side gets more than three. But they're kind of, I think they're messing with that a little bit where a defense they see that fast four and they expect to get overloaded to that side, but it kind of goes around the other way. They
And they
get
pivot back.
overloaded.
Yeah, you got to sit and pivot back. That's Scott Turner does some cool stuff, man.
He does. It's a nice pass rush by Jaron Reed there. Kind of.
It is. I haven't paid it. So we haven't really talked about it, and I haven't spent a ton of time with the defense. I didn't look at snap counts either. I should have prepared for this, I guess. I know Wyatt was out. It seemed like Reed was doing some good stuff, and Wyatt was out there a little more. And Wyatt, I know his hustle was really good. I didn't see how much push he got. I don't know if we're going to talk about that at all. But like, what were your feeling on? What was your feeling on Wyatt this game? Because I feel like he got more run than he had previously, right?
He did actually. His snap counts have been increasing actually the last 3 weeks, just very gradually. Like it's like 7%, 9%, and then 12%. I think this game, something
Okay.
around there.
The
Part of
DeGuara,
it
he's got the DeGuara role on the defense.
exactly, yeah, yeah. I think part of it was this game. They was just the defense was on the field a lot, and so they had to
Yeah.
get more rotations going. I thought Wyatt played pretty well from what I saw. It wasn't perfect, and we'll kind of get to some of that stuff when we go to run defense. But he held his own at the line of scrimmage a bit. Still some stuff to clean up, but yeah, the effort plays especially stood out to me.
Okay. I was gonna say every time I saw him out there, it seemed like he was doing cool things. I hadn't really paid attention closely
Yeah.
to him. So
Yeah, well, it wasn't super dramatic, but stuff. I think stuff that you can kind of get behind stuff that you like to see from a defensive lineman.
45-year-old rookie, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so this is another blitz. I don't have a fancy name for this because I forgot to look up what it is, but essentially the safety is coming off the edge. This one is kind of an example of that drag route being picked up a lot better. It helps when you've got the seam guy on the other side. You've got still two guys in the box because you're not Campbell's not taken out by a vertical route or anything like
Yeah.
that, and so there's more bodies in the box to handle those drag routes. And I think this is actually Enikbari's sack.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll say, and we've not talked about it too much. I mean, just from a coverage perspective, the thing that got me early in the year was like, again, I'm not the biggest fan of Barry and what he does, but what they did well last year is they didn't have a lot of coverage busts, and that was littered with it this year.
Yeah.
Just from what I was looking at, it seemed like they were passing stuff off way better in this game. I mean, they kind of had been gradually improving, I think, the previous week as well. But there was stuff, I mean, especially I know like the Campbell pick six. That was a pretty good example of them like just kind of passing off some of those routes in a way like that they hadn't done so far. So as far as some of this, like once they start passing stuff off with the route distribution and everything, I was encouraged in this game over the past couple of games, like more than I was over the first like 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, I would agree. Actually, I think I said to someone, I thought this was their best game passing stuff off in the secondary. So kind of what you were saying. Just a big improvement. There weren't really a lot of miscommunications. We covered a couple, but a lot of those were, I think, more on the offensive design, just being really good, as opposed to defensive mistakes. I mean, it's always going to be a mix. But yeah, I thought they did a really good job this game. Think we might have lost Dusty. Let me see here. Dusty, can you hear me? Looks like the red bar is showing your red bar for the connection. So I'm just gonna go ahead and keep going and join back if and when you can. But yeah, this is Enigbar's sack, kind of just a little long arm move. And let's see here. I just got a message. Hold on a minute. Yeah. So kind of just an effort sack there. He gets the long arm, kind of pushes guys back. Rashawn or Kenny Clark actually, I think, creates this for him, right? He, it's in with the kind of long stab move, club, and like rip there, and then Barry kind of cleans it up. Bear with me a minute, guys. Just go check on what's happening with Dusty. It looks like he just accidentally disconnected. Okay. Hopefully he'll be joining us again in just a minute here. Hmm. See here. Sorry, guys. I didn't realize this is not good television or whatever you want to call it. Just trying to get everything set up again. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and keep going, and hopefully just Dusty will be able to join us in just a minute. So this is actually this is kind of what I wanted to wait for him for, but can't really help whatever's going on. This is Devondre Campbell's pick six. So this was kind of a fun coverage to look at and try to figure out. So what the Commanders are doing here is they've got a four receiver side. So 1, 2, 3, 4 towards the bottom of the screen. And what the Packers are doing is they're running a variant of cover three called cover. What's what Fangio calls cover nine. So the safety at the top there, Adrian Amos, he's essentially poaching that crossing route from the number four receiver, the tight end. Um, and we'll kind of look at what they're doing on the front end in a minute here. But on the boundary, you got Stokes and Jair. Essentially, they're playing man on the outside. Rasul has receiver, unless that receiver he goes underneath, and so Russell passes him off to Devondre. He kind of takes that route coming back outside. It's kind of a sail concept. And then, yeah, Devondre just reads it. The ball's kind of behind the receiver, a little bit high, and just fights through that to contact and makes the pick. And then he has blockers in front. I always love seeing that. It's watch. So up front here, essentially it's called what's called a load front. So we've got three defensive linemen to one side, one to the other. Quay's walked up over the guard. And so what this is normally going to do is you're either going to get man protection. So each offensive lineman is going to have a man that they're assigned to. I wish I had my pen to draw on the screen with, but I'll have to figure out how that will work in the future. But whether they're not in man protection here, they're sliding towards the overloaded side, so towards the three defensive lineman side. You can kind of see the center slide that way. The left guard is kind of keeping eyes on Quay until he drops out, and then going to help the center a little bit. It's a really great job. I like one thing I do like about what Barry does is he gets guys singled up in pass protection pretty well. So what he's going to do here, the left guard, he's the guy who's looking to help someone, but the only guy he can really help is the center or the left tackle. And with Preston Smith rushing outside the tackle, all he can do is help on probably the least dangerous pass rusher, Jaron Reed. So you got Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, and Preston Smith all with one-on-ones. Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary both win theirs and force the pressure for the missed throw. One thing I wanted to go back and talk about here for a minute is what the safety is doing. Kind of, I talked about how he's poaching that crossing route from the number 4 receiver. What they're running here is Fangio. He has a set of adjustments for cover 3 for that weak side safety and linebacker. They call it strap. Essentially, there's different ways the linebacker and safety can play it. So normally this is for 3-by-1, not 4-by-1. So imagine a running back in the backfield with the quarterback on the same side as the single receiver, and then a trips formation to the other side. So there are different ways that Fangio can play that. That's this 2 receiver side essentially. So the running back and the singled up receiver, if that makes sense. He can either have the linebacker take the running back on, he's flaring out, that kind of thing, or he can have the safety take the running back, flaring out. And there are different ways, different reasons you would want to do the 2 things. So one of the big dangers in cover 3 is, when you get over route from the 3 receiver side, the weak hook defender, which is usually a linebacker, has to carry that because the other hook defender doesn't have the leverage, and so the linebacker usually has to look back. They call it the 3 up is 3 rule. The linebacker has to look back, see over routes coming and carry them up the field, but that's really hard to do. That's why you saw a lot of the Seattle system. The defensive coordinators, they would go everywhere and they wouldn't have the same success as the Legion of Boom. Partly because they didn't have like Hall of Famers at free safety and corner and all that, but also because they didn't have linebackers that were like Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright. Because the linebackers in that cover 3 system, they need to be really good at carrying that over route. But what Fangio did was he developed a way to, and I don't think this is just him. He developed a way to kind of take pressure off the linebacker there, so that the strap adjustment, essentially, depending on game plan, the linebacker would instead of this. So let me backtrack a little bit. In cover 3, normally what you would see is the safety is covering the seam to the flat. So, if the running back flares out, he takes that route. And then the linebacker is the weak hook defender. What you can do is switch the responsibilities, essentially. So if the running back flares out, the linebacker will take him, and the safety will kind of poach that over route from number 3. And that obviously gives him, he's kind of attacking top down, gives him better leverage. And obviously it's, generally a more athletic defender, guy who can handle receivers moving downfield. Well, what strap does is you could play it that way. Another adjustment you can make is if the running back blocks, that the reason the if the running back blocks, the linebacker will stay as a weak hook defender. And the reasoning behind that, no, I'm sorry, I'm getting things mixed up. If the running back blocks, the weak hook defender will be the safety, because normally when you get more than 5-man protection, you're trying to go deeper down the field, and so there's a greater danger of those over routes. If the running back flares out immediately, then the safety will take him, and the linebacker will kind of play that 3 up is 3 role, where he's handling the over route for number 3, because generally you're not going to get that if the running back is going out quickly, then it's probably going to be a quick pass. They So those were the kind of the 2 main ways they did that, and that's a really long-winded way to say that the safety, he's not playing the normal cover 3 safety role where he's guarding the seam and the flat. He's essentially playing those over routes. He's kind of poaching, looking to the 4 receiver side. You can kind of see his eyes on the end zone view here. He's just kind of looking over to that number 4. He's ready to carry him upfield, and so that takes pressure off Quay, right? He doesn't have to worry about seeing that over route, carrying that up the field. It looks like Dusty might be in again. Yo, what's up?
I don't know what happened there. My internet's been fine. I don't know what's going on, man. But hey, thanks. Hey, thanks for welcoming me back.
Yeah, no problem. I was just kind of talking about the coverage on the Devondre interception.
Oh
So
yeah.
I don't know if you saw. Did you see? Were you able to watch any of that, or?
I was not as frantically trying to get back on. I looked at this, I guess, on my own a little bit. Yeah, but that didn't really diagnose
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, so it's a coverage that's kind of a little bit harder to figure out, just because there's a 4 receiver side, just stuff is kind of a little more distorted. But what I think this is cover 9, which is basically cover 3 with the safety rotating down weak, and it's a special adjustment that Fangio calls cover 9 strap, where that safety is essentially poaching the over route from, in this case, the number 4 receiver. And then Devondre, he's playing kind of that hook zone. And it's a really good play by him. Just even with inside leverage, being able to make a play on that ball, even though it's a bad throw as well.
I was going to say that's not a good throw, but still, I mean, you certainly see his length there, where he's able to kind of, because the ball is not outside, but it's also not inside. Like it's just kind of on him, and the fact that he's able to kind of reach up with his pterodactyl arms and grab that away is pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Really nice. I was also saying, with the way the front is gamed up, essentially the only guy that the left guard, after Quay drops out, the left guard, he's kind of looking to help. Preston rushes outside, but the way that the load front is set up, with 3 defensive linemen on one side, he can really only help against Jaron Reed, which is the worst pass rusher on the field in this situation. So Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark just get one-on-ones. That is one of the things I like about him, or about Barry, is he is fairly good, I think, at getting his pass rushers matched up one-on-one.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does a nice job with that, and typically with inside linebackers. Although there's times in this game, I don't know, I don't really like to see it as a shift, I guess, but there's times when he is a little more aggressive with some of the stuff than others, and this game plan I felt was a little more aggressive than we'd seen from him. So I kind of hope some of that stuff stays up.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I felt like the most blitzes he had run, essentially since the Buccaneers game. And it wasn't just like, passing down blitzes. It was, he was doing stuff on base downs to, we kind of saw the stuff that the ways he was using Quay to shut down play action and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and mixing it up in a way that I certainly appreciated in this game, even if the end result was less than ideal.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so that's kind of the main coverage snaps I wanted to go over. I was thinking we could do some run fit stuff now. And Dusty, if I know it's getting kind of late in your area, so if you need to bow out, feel free to do that.
I'm up for another hour or something, man. I'm not going to sleep. So if you'll still have me, I'm gonna be around, dude.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so kind of looking at this play here. This is Packers are in penny personnel. Looks like the Washington Commanders. I'm not sure if they're in 11 or 12 here. just because they have, I can't see the numbers. It looks like they're actually in 11.
Numbers don't matter, Sam. They got an 8 in the backfield, man. The numbers are nothing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so I feel like I got really bad quality film here. I don't know. I think that the way the stuff I recorded did not come out good quality. That NFL Game Pass is so frustrating to record stuff
It's
on.
not great. It's not great.
Yeah. All right. So penny personnel. So essentially, what you got, Campbell. He's kind of moving over with the motion. Kind of they're shifting over. Savage is the other guy coming down into the box, and then Rasul is he's in the box as well as kind of the nickel defender. So normally when you see like 8-man boxes like this, it's what you call lever spill lever fits. So the outside run fitters, which in this case is Devondre, he will be levering the run fit. So he'll be playing outside in, essentially a force player. The inside of the second level defenders, which in this case Savage, he'll be spilling. So he's going to be attacking inside out, kind of more aggressively fitting the run. And then the backside guy, he's going to be playing the backside cutback. This was an interesting run because it kind of looks like counter, but they're using the in motion receiver as the pulling guard, which I thought was really interesting. Because I mean, it's counter footwork, counter blocking. It all looks like counter, except they're using like I don't know if that's a tight end in motion or a receiver, but they're using him to kind of kick out that edge.
You got the slicer, but then you also have that puller underneath as well.
Yeah, but Green Bay does a good job fitting this. I liked. There were some moments when the DBs for Green Bay, they were kind of willing to get their nose dirty a little bit. So what essentially kind of makes this play? Gary spills that kick out block inside out. Devondre is kind of playing it outside in. All right, like I said, he's kind of the force player. And then Dean Lowry is resetting the line of scrimmage. He's got that offensive lineman.
He sure is.
Yeah.
Was that Rasul that shoots the gap there through the
Yeah,
middle?
he kind of hits it backside because that's the main way you're going to get cut back is kind of back there in these gap schemes. Yeah, he kind of hits it from the backside. The second puller, he sees Gary still in that gap, and so he kind of comes to help, and then Savage is basically left free to help make the tackle.
Yeah. As the stats don't show it, like they did show some nice aggression, some nice looks to kind of fit some of these runs, even if the end result was not great, I guess overall. I don't know. Again, it's hard to take a whole lot of positives, I think, from this game, but some
Yeah.
of the stuff they did here, I thought was I know some of the stuff from Quay. I don't know if this is what we're going to look at in this one here, but I thought looked a little more comfortable in some of the ways that kind of tried to slow the game down for him. I kind of I enjoyed watching this game.
Yeah, this is kind of I think what you're talking about before. I think you talked about it on Pack-A-Day when you were the Wednesday podcast.
This is just like his feet in cement sometimes. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think part of that was to help him kind of with mental processing. I think also they were getting like killed quite a bit on jet sweeps coming the other way from the run action, and so I think they wanted him to hang back there, and this is what he's going to kind of do. He's playing that jet sweep or counter, whatever you want to call it, coming across, rather than playing the initial like toss action there. So I don't know if this is the coaching staff saying, "Hey, you play those backside jet sweeps or whatever," or if he spots it really early. It's hard
My
to tell.
assumption, because I know his eyes have not been great so far. I mean, all that misdirection. And maybe I'm not giving him enough credit for some of this stuff, but my assumption when I was watching some of this was they likely just told him, they give him if then statements, is basically like, if they do this, you take this and you don't worry about anything else. So like that quick movement from him, that quick step is, if you see this movement, you've got this, because we've got this stuff on the other side as well, just to kind of, I don't know, inside linebacker is such a tough position to play, such a tough position to kind of transition to, that I see that as quick a step as that is. That's I fully believe that that's a coaching point that they kind of gave him.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's kind of more of a coaching point than just him seeing it, straight up and just
It'd be
playing
nice
that.
if he's seeing it straight up, but based on what we've
Yeah.
seen so far this year, I think I have to assume that's a coaching point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of what they're trying to do is, I think Preston is technically supposed to play the inside gap of that guy coming across, and then Quay's supposed to fit outside. But I think Preston, he just kind of sees an opportunity to make a play and just bends back outside to make the tackle.
Yeah, he blew up the what was that game? Was it the Bucks game? He blew up the reverse or the end around in the
Yeah,
backfield, kind of same thing. Just that
yeah.
he got deep enough, and then he had the recognition, and just well, I'm just gonna kind of stay here and blow this up.
Yeah. I think that was the Bucks game. Um, I think this snap is another example what you're kind of talking about, where he's kind of just sitting there until he's sure of what he's seeing. What's kind of interesting, and then I didn't really get all the sideline view because, like I said, Game Pass is really frustrating to record on because you gotta
Yeah.
record the one view and then go and switch the mode and then go into record the other view, and so sometimes I just got lazy and recorded one of them. But this one, it looks like the Packers are actually in man coverage, and what the safeties are doing is they're rocking and rolling. That's the term that I've seen used. So it's a way, instead of Savage trailing his man across the formation, which is kind of hard to do through the traffic, he'll kind of pass it off to the other safety, and then he'll play the the deep middle of the field. And then yeah, with fitting this, so yeah, I think Quay, he's kind of playing just kind of backside, watching for cutbacks, because you could see
Yeah.
that the way Devondre plays this is not like he's expecting Quay to be an immediate, help in run support. He's playing what I think of as ball fitting, so he's kind of pacing the back. He's staying level with the back, and so he can play those cutbacks. He's
Which I
not
think
just
is where
shooting a gap.
it's where he's best, right? Like that's what I kind of wonder some of the Quay stuff, like, and that's been the talking point all year. And I'm curious your thoughts on this. I know we're not really talking about this now, but we are going to talk about this now. With some of his, they had so much of not necessarily the penny stuff, but where he was kind of the lone inside linebacker and kind of put the ability to read, react, play sideline and sideline a little bit more last year. He was, even if he wasn't the lone guy in the middle, he played as if he was the lone guy in the middle. And with Quay this year, I do feel like some of the stuff, maybe this is wishful thinking, some of the stuff with Devondre has been this, he's not the lone guy. There's a second guy, and there's this read, the reads are different when you're playing with a guy next to you versus when you're the guy in the middle. So I kind of wonder if some of this bringing Quay up, some of the pass rush stuff we looked at earlier, some of this, you sit on the back end and take away this stuff to make the game easier for Quay. If some of that is also just letting Devondre do what Devondre does best in a way they haven't done earlier this season. I don't know if what your thoughts are on that, in terms of how if that has anything to do with how Devondre has looked, and if they're starting to kind of find a way through that to let him be who he is a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that, so in that vein, I think that's kind of my thought as well. So I think that what a lot of the problems that were arising from, what was kind of causing that, was the front was, they were essentially freeing up the front to play more penetrating against the run game, and so like in the Bears game, you'd see Rashawn Gary, he swam inside the inside gap and made a play, tackle for loss, like 5-yard loss. But other times, when whoever's doing that, three technique, Jaron Reed, Kenny Clark, whoever is doing that, when they're not able to fully make the play, then you've got, because they're not, doing more of what they were doing last year, where they were more taking up blocks and letting the linebackers run free. Those linebackers are put in really tough positions because they've got to, especially if they're still in a live box, they got to play multiple gaps, and they usually got to deal with an offensive lineman who's free and kind of coming up to block them. And so I think that's I think you're kind of on the same track there, where they aren't playing the same way. They aren't letting the linebackers play the same way that they did last year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and one thing, I don't know if they wanted to play that way last year, but I think it kind of ended up that way because a lot of their defensive linemen were just big boys. Tyler Lancaster, that's kind of just what he did. He just took up space.
Yeah.
And so they would use him at like three technique and stuff, and he's not penetrating, and so they kind of just had to play that way. And I kind of think they should go back to playing that way, and they did a little bit in this game, and I think you kind of saw some of the results. But
It seems like it
I
makes sense. Like I get it. I get trying to get upfield a little more, get vertical a little bit more, but it does seem like with I don't know, with Devondre and Quay back there, my whole thought is, listen, if you just have a defensive line that like creates clear lanes for linebackers, that's good. That's good for the
mhm.
linebackers, especially with the athleticism that Quay brings and some of the recognition Devondre brings. So I don't know that I hate that, but also I get the kind of knifing up, and you hope that Quay can disengage a little bit more and sift through that rubble. Clearly, he's not there yet. So at this point, I'm kind of in the camp of create clear lanes. And if you need to switch up later, you switch up later. But you got big guys up front, and just let the linebackers clean up because they can, especially with Campbell shown that. But Quay's got the ability to kind of knife through and make some of those stops. That I feel like keeping him clean should be more of a priority than it's been so far, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. I was kind of, I think I commented this on, I was talking about this on Twitter, where I think I don't really like how they're fitting the front and the second level together. Kind of what you were saying, that I think that the linebackers would be a lot more successful being just left free, clean to roam and, fill those holes. I feel like they're just not being put in great positions, or at least up to this game, they weren't being put in great positions to succeed.
Sure. Yeah.
So, moving on here to this, I can't remember what this run step is. Okay, so this was actually, I don't think Quay makes the tackle here, but I really like he's able to kind of. I think that the main reason I chose this, from what I remember, is just his ability to create separation from that second level blocker and kind of not get caught up. That's, I think, one area where he might be better than Campbell, is just
Yeah.
using his length and his hands to disengage from
When he
blocks.
keeps his he's disengaging, like he's tracking his head's up the entire time. He
Yeah.
never gets distracted by that blocker. It's almost like it's a nonchalant, like he's flowing, gets his hands in, like he's got that
Hmm.
I think it was you and I. Yeah, yeah, early in the season, I guess we talked about that. And like
Yeah.
his punch, his ability to kind of get off some of those blocks and disengage. I mean that looks very easy for him in a way that it
Hmm.
probably shouldn't. With the with was that a guard coming at you? With his
Yeah.
size, like that's the fact that he's able to keep his head up, track that while so easily disengaging. That's one of those. He hasn't been great so far this year, which I certainly anticipated, but it's something like this again. Whether he makes a tackle or not is irrelevant. That shows the
Hmm.
flashes of what how he's able to keep himself clean and still kind
Yeah.
of stay with the play, which is pretty impressive.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's one reason I want to see him used as a pass rusher more. Is it just feels like he has this natural ability to attack blockers and just use his hands to get free. And so I want to see that. Can he do that in pass rushing context? It feels like it could translate, and so that's kind of why I want to see that. Just it feels like he could have a really a knack for getting free against blockers.
Yeah, he doesn't have that bend really, but he's got that strong punch, long arms, and just it seems like he has pretty good instincts for it. Where like that's the thing. I don't know that necessarily. I don't want to see him not like a pass rusher off the edge on a regular basis, but like that inside kind of disengage off guards or something. That's like it seems like
Yeah,
he could eat there once he gets a little more comfortable with it. I feel like.
yeah, guards and running backs, just kind of getting matched up against those guys and see what he can do.
Yeah.
I would agree. Okay, so this right here, let me see. What was I looking at here? Right, so this is actually another example of Rasul kind of getting involved. So I think you kind of see Quay. He's playing that cross the formation blocker. He's filling that inside gap. Um, and I'm not sure
And he's
this
just
run
kind
is
of
probably
stalking too. He's kind of slowly advancing, kind of those choppy steps, like keeping himself clean while also
yeah.
getting himself keeping a good position to get that cut back there.
Hmm. Yeah, he's kind of. I think this. I would consider this probably split zone. Um, Yeah, it's a good edge. Ladarius Hamilton. I actually liked what Ladarius Hamilton did sometimes, a couple times in the run game this week.
High praise. I like what he did sometimes, a couple times maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He. I mean, at this point, the backup edges other than Enigbara, I mean, I just want some sort of
Competence.
positive
Just competence, man.
something. Yeah, exactly. And then this is. I think that Restream makes this play. I mean, obviously, Ladarius, he's kind of beating the tackle on the edge. And TJ Slayton's holding up that guard there. He's just leaving that gap open.
Big
So
strong
just kind of
man.
sticks his head in. And,
Big strong man.
exactly. All right. I think there's another. Okay, so this one is actually cool. This was a Devontae Wyatt play. So he's playing that 5 technique out there on the right tackle, and he does a really good job just extending and holding the line of scrimmage.
It's a really good
that,
leverage, yeah.
Yeah, forcing that linebacker, and it's cool because Quay actually makes the play off of that block, tracks that running back.
See, and that's the thing. The stuff we talk about Quay Flash in this game, so the speed he's able to close on based on where he is, like where he sees he's sitting in that gap,
Yeah,
and then he's able to get over, kind of keep himself clean. That closing speed, that recognition. I mean, thing he hasn't been perfect, but that's the stuff you can dream on right there. Like that's at his peak. Like he's doing stuff like that. So this was a very encouraging play, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. And you can kind of see the tight end. He comes back to try to block him a little bit. He kind of he's blocking Preston there.
Yeah,
He kind
he's
of
trying to
tries
like
to do something,
disengage
and
off
Quay's like,
Preston.
"Nope."
Yeah, it just flies right over the
Nasty.
top of him. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, this is a really nice rep from Wyatt. Locks, peaks, extends, or locks. I can't remember the order.
Well, who's that in
It's
the
like
middle holding up the double team? Who was that?
that. I
Is
believe
that
that's
Reed?
Slayton.
No, that's Slayton. That's Slayton.
Yeah. So Wyatt extends, locks out, peaks, sees the running back. He's playing the primary gap. I mean, this is like textbook gap and a half play. He sees the running back. As he's cutting back, he cuts across, and I think the lineman gets away with a hold there. Just a small one.
Well, both
Not
him
small.
and Slayton flashed their helmets to the inside there too. Like at that moment
Yeah.
they're both in pretty good position, flashing to the inside. Then Quay sitting right in that hole to force that bounce.
Yeah, exactly. This is a really good rep from like the defensive lineman keeping the linebacker clean, and then also the defensive lineman like playing multiple gaps.
Well, and then Preston not really giving him anywhere to go either on the outside. Like he's holding that edge pretty well as well.
Yeah, this was an all around really nice rep. All right, let's see here. Okay, so this is duo. So the Commanders are running duo from 11 personnel. The Packers got cover 3. So normally in duo, the running back's reading the mic, right? If the mic kind of plays aggressively into the hole, he's going to bounce it outside. And so cover 3 is a pretty, natural call against that. Because you can get that safety in position to play that outside cut. The way the linebackers play this is interesting, though. They're kind of like hiding behind these defensive linemen, and part of the reason this rep is succeeds from the run defense is those defensive linemen. They're holding their blockers. I mean, Kenny Clark, pretty textbook double team there. Jaron Reed's definitely not as pretty. He gets driven back a little bit. But the important thing is he kind of keeps Quay clean enough to clear that backside gap. The backside, I think that's a B gap. And then he kind of scrapes across. He's able to help make this tackle.
If you're going to lose, just make yourself big, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, and then this one, I think this was another example. Okay, this was a funny rep. So I think that what happens normally, what they've been having him do against pullers is he's reading the guard, so that letting the guard take him to where the play is, and you can see the guard pull. I think that Kenny Clark blocks his vision here because you can kind of see Kenny Clark gets off the ball so fast.
This is when I remember seeing this. Like he doesn't move. He does not move until everything's established. This one.
Yeah, and that might be part of it, but also like Kenny Clark, he's like blocking that entire offensive lineman, number 68, and then Quay
the complaint is just Kenny Clark is too big and doesn't know where to go.
Exactly. And then he just kind of blows up that block, submarines in for the tackle.
Yeah, that was. I think that was one of the ones I was watching. Like his feet never move. He's just standing there the whole time. I hadn't picked up on the Clark thing. Like that's interesting. There was it's Kenny Clark. Quay's just not moving. He's just. They just told him just stand there.
Yeah, and it's probably a mix. It's probably both. But that was kind of the first thing that came to my mind. I'd seen him, trigger off those guards pretty frequently, and so it's like, Why is he not doing it? Oh, he's blocked by Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark's a big man.
That's true.
All right.
Very big head. If you listen to MVS, built like a microwave, I think.
That's right. This was, I think, this was another example. Like you said, Quay just kind of sitting back, watching stuff, and then shuffling over
Preston
there.
off the edge. Good Lord.
Yeah, that was a great play.
He fights through. He gets through the slicer. Like he dives, submarines the slicer, but still gets back underneath to like make the tackle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this might be like a freelance type play because normally you don't want to do that against counter or you might get like washed out. But I think he just said, okay, I can make this play.
Yeah, he just kind of dips and gets underneath. That's impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of see Devondre. You can kind of see Devondre. He's not able to get off that block as cleanly as Quay does. In fact, you can kind of see the comparison on this rep because Quay gets blocked, I think, by an offensive lineman there, and he just kind of stabs and rips.
Punch and rip. Yeah, those arms, man. Like
I know.
it's the thing. Like there's so much. I hope he's getting better. I mean, he certainly has shown that he's improving. But his arms and strength, it seems like if he's able to put that all together, man, that's a dangerous combo.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and I don't know. I'm not like a draft guru or anything, so scouting guys from college to NFL, I don't have a lot of experience in that. I didn't think his processing was that bad in college. I think that he's just still getting used to what he's seeing in the NFL. So that's kind of what I hope. But yeah, his physical traits are, he could be crazy good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this one we talked about this earlier, kind of the same blitz idea. Scary stunts inside. It's kind of a gap exchange, but Quay bends around this edge really nicely to make that tackle.
And Kenny Clark just doing Kenny Clark stuff in the middle.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of a ballsy call because with the pony package, the other linebacker, he's getting out of there, and so if this doesn't work, then you might have a pretty big lane for the running back to come or running back to go into. But it does. So
I love watching Kenny Clark. That's all my analysis on this play, Sam. Is I just love watching Kenny Clark, man.
Yeah, I mean, can't really go wrong with that type of analysis.
Serve me well.
Yeah. I mean, every week just say Kenny Clark's good and
Kenny Clark actually good. Like this guy knows what he's talking about. Look at this guy. He knows ball.
Exactly. He knows ball. All right. So this one, I like this one because it's just a one-on-one play. I think this was on Washington's. They were trying to run a 2-minute drive, which is why you see the defensive line kind of really like wide.
I was going to say this had to be obvious passing.
Yeah.
Just leaving that entire thing open.
But this is kind of an example. You talked about Devondre fitting off the ball a little bit earlier. This is Quay doing that. He kind of, I like how he just breaks down, right there.
Head up, stays in front of him.
A lot more in control than some of the other missed tackles we saw from him.
Yeah, he's not grasping at air. I mean, you get that little that move in the hole there, that telephone booth move there. He still keeps his head up and stays with them, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was definitely one of his better tackling attempts.
Yeah.
And then this one was kind of interesting. I'm not sure if they're in man coverage or not, but they have a fullback in the backfield, and I think that Quay just gets taken out because that's. I don't know. When I see a play like that, I think that he's just reacting to what his assignment would be. Because normally, when you see a fullback go back that way, they're creating gaps, and so he has to adjust to that. In a vacuum, and maybe as he grows, grows in experience, he can kind of see, okay, this guy is kind of in a pass set. But even then, like if I remember right, this is quarters, and so he would have the routes to the flat, and so he essentially, if this is pass, he has to take that guy.
Yeah, the movement there, it's tough to tell without the full wide angle there, but the movement there, I assume. I mean, that's another one. I assume coaching point. I assume that's the call there. There's no hesitation. It's that he flares out and he takes them. I have to assume that's his assignment there. Like you said, like some of the recognition, maybe as we go forward, like you recognize that, but at the same time, like that guy flares out, and like you said, based on the coverage, there's likely no one else over there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I have to assume that's the call there.
Yeah, it's kind of actually a really interesting way to run the ball because it's kind of like an RPO in that it's taking guys away from the run fit to with the threat of the pass. Even though I don't think they would. Well, I guess they would. They could throw this if this
Well,
was play
you're
action.
seeing that a lot in across the league in red zone stuff. This,
Hmm.
obviously this is at the 50s. This is midfield here. But you're seeing a lot with the red zone stuff. This I formation leak the fullback out. And I think for that exact reason, you're either removing a linebacker from the run fit or they're
Yeah.
fitting the run, and you gotta let fullback wide open. But this is something I've not really looked at this past years, but it does seem like this year. I know low red zone, so like within the 10-yard line, you're seeing a lot more teams do this, and
Uh,
maybe this is expanding a bit, but this is something I've kind of seen throughout the league a little bit this year.
yeah, that's interesting. I can't say I've noticed the same thing, but yeah, I think you might watch more general NFL film than I do.
I've got a problem, Sam. That's what you're trying to say there. There's something wrong with me.
Oh no, I would never say that because I've got the same problem. Yeah, but on the other guys in this play, Jaron Reed actually does a really good job. He kind of resets the edge from a three technique, gets penetration back there, and forces the cutback along with Preston. And then Devondre, he's just playing in control, just waiting for that open that gap, the cutback gap, and just playing that. Okay. So I think this might be the last one. This was another one, just Quay, just that athleticism sticking out. So this is outside zone. I love how he just dodges that blocker. He just kind of side swipes him.
He looks when he's able to do that. He looks so natural at that. I mean,
Hmm.
he slows down because he has to, but he doesn't slow down by much. And as he's able to accelerate right afterwards, like it just looks it's so natural the way he's able to do that.
Yeah, and to the other guy's credit, this is a good job. Darnell Savage and I think that's Enik Barre. They kind of set the edge out there pretty strongly, along with Dean Lowry to force that cut back into Quay's lane. And that's something I think in the Jets game, actually, Anik Barry had a rep where he tried to cut inside of a pin pull run like this and got totally washed out. And so it's kind of cool to see him, being a little more, playing this a little more correctly based on what the run is.
I told him just don't do that anymore. Don't do that thing anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that was the last one. So
So what are
thanks.
what are your thoughts overall on Sam? I mean, looking at this, I mean, I know they ran for 160 yards or something. I think the Washington ran
Yeah,
for. Like looking at, I know we looked at a bunch of different stuff, but just as far as the run fit stuff, because I know you picked out a handful of plays that they did fairly well on. What are your
yeah.
thoughts overall in terms of? Because we've had conversations mainly, in the DMs about how they've looked. Have you seen anything as far as how they're doing things differently? Is there anything promising going forward that you're seeing here? Is it just kind of a you hope this stuff gels and Quay kind of comes along that is able to elevate them?
I think that, like I said, they're playing a little bit more take up on the defensive line. They're playing a little bit more to take up space rather than penetrate, which I think is helping the linebackers. I mean, it's hard for me because I watch, every snap, and it feels like they do a lot of good stuff, but then there are snaps where just stuff just breaks down and there's a 20-yard run.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that they looked better in this game. I think that the main times that they failed were there were a couple big runs that Rashawn Gary just had trouble setting the edge a couple times, which is a little bit unusual, I thought, for him. Normally, I think he does a pretty good job of that when he's not trying to, penetrate and make plays. But I thought this was one of the better games that they've played, even though the box score didn't necessarily show it.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I got through some of it. I mean, they seem like it's a little bar to clear, but I it seemed like guys were where they were supposed to be and were doing what they were supposed to do more often than not, which again, low bar to clear. And I think that was true in run fits and also in coverage.
Hmm.
Just that they look like there's not busts necessarily in the way that we've seen so far, like in the run game, certainly a couple, but it certainly did not seem as widespread as it was before. So, as weird as it is to
Yeah.
say, I'm somewhat encouraged, I guess, by this game. So I'm glad that you are as well, because I know you look at defensive side way more than I do.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I think that this is kind of an encouragement, but then again, I mean, this is the Commanders, right? It's not a good team. You know, we're gonna
It's
say
true.
we're saying all this. You know, they improved and all that, and then they're just gonna give up a 50 burger on Sunday night. So it's relative. I enjoy watching some good defensive plays, so I'm happy that this week was fairly nice. But
Yeah, and for some of this stuff too, I mean, it's always for me, it's do they look better than they did last week? Do they look better than they
yeah,
looked week one? Like, are there any signs, especially with the young guys out there? I mean, seeing Wyatt out there was good, and seeing
hmm
Quay take a step, like that's what you want to see. Like at this point, NFC sucks. So they still are in the playoff hunt. You know, you're not counting anyone out. But you look at this like this is a year, maybe an evaluation at some point, and
yeah,
it's nice to see just improvement, even if maybe the results aren't great. Like this looked better than it did 3 weeks ago, and that's
yeah.
encouraging. I think.
Yeah, and one thing I've kind of been hoping, you know, just low key, I kind of hope they get some of the younger guys more playing time, like Devontae Wyatt. I'd love to see him out there
That's
with
what
like 20 or 30 snaps. I want to see
That's
what
what I
he
was
can
excited to
actually
see
do.
Wyatt a little more. Yeah, to get him out there. Yeah, I mean,
hmm
Quay's out there out of necessity. Like Dean Lowry's. I like Dean Lowry just fine. We know what Dean Lowry is. Like,
Yeah,
Wyatt.
exactly.
I'd like to see out there a little bit more.
hmm
Like I don't think the practice. You heard stuff in practice. And he's plays too high and blah 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 blah. He looked fine when he was out there this past week. So I
Yeah.
would like to see some more of him. Hopefully.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't know. Who knows what'll happen? It doesn't feel like this team wants to even like enter that tanking mindset even a little bit.
Yeah, I think the
Even
season's got to go like way down the drain. Like it's 3 games left in the season, and they've already been eliminated. If
yeah.
that's the case, before they start looking at some other stuff. So
Yeah, probably. I mean, they've kind of dug their own. I don't know what metaphor I'm trying to use. They've dug their own grave and now they're sleeping in it.
Mhm.
Um, they committed so much to kind of winning. Now they kind of got to at least play it out until it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, you're not packing up after 7 weeks, especially with your. May I've not looked at playoff picture because of week 7. Then maybe in the 7 spot in the wild card right now because like
Yeah,
everyone except the NFC East is bad, I guess. So who knows? But
yeah. Well, thanks for coming on with me, man. This is a lot of fun.
appreciate you asking me. This was I don't look at pressures or run fits too much, so it's like, well, I sure hope I have something to say. But yeah, thanks for having me on, man. This was always a blast talking ball with you. I always learn something. So this was awesome. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I'll see you later. I'll go ahead and end the stream here. And everyone who's watching, thanks for joining us. And